And we're back. Unfortunately, we had to restart Microsoft PowerPoint. Unfortunately, had to break up the show into two parts. But here we are. We are back with our second point of the part of the show, and we're going to wrap up Direct Snap before we head into our new college basketball show, The Bubble. Should have a lot of fun talking about college basketball, but I'll wait a minute or so for everybody to check back in to the show. Where we left off, we were talking about this 9.5-point line with this Packers-Dolphins game. I think the line is too strong for the Packers, even though I do have them winning the game. And in the intermission between the first part of the show and now the second part of the show, Texas won. How about that? Somehow survived that buzzer beater attempt from Arkansas and moved on to 2-0. And, college basketball, it doesn't matter how you win as long as you do. Yep, thanks everyone tuning back into the show. So Texas 2-0, moving on. How about that? We'll take it for sure. So here we are, and I'm going to get right back into it. Start off with my pick for this game. Packers 28-20 over the Dolphins. And I tell you what, I'm going to take this opportunity to plug in my computer as well because, if things can go wrong, they will go wrong. And I'm not even sure I have the battery left to make it through the rest of this show. Second look, I definitely don't think I can. Oh, boy, setting everything back up. And, well, if you looked at my setup right now, it doesn't look pretty, but here we are back with Direct Snap. So once again, I'm going to take the Packers 28-20. We're going to quickly move through these last few games of the week. Rams and the Seahawks played a very close one back in October. I think it'll be a close one again. I'm going to take the Rams to bounce back after their first loss of the season, but for the game to be a 30-23 Rams victory. Sunday night, Cowboys and Eagles. I think it'll be a close one. But in the end, I am going to go with the Eagles. Definitely a poor performance last week, to say the least, from the Titans, or the Cowboys in their game against the Titans. They're going to try to bounce it back against the Eagles, but the Eagles have, playoff aspirations, and they're not going to let Dallas take a win from them. And then in my final game of the week, the Giants and the Niners back on Monday Night Football. And, I don't know who keeps throwing the Giants on primetime, but we don't deserve it. And I kind of don't want to see us lose over and over again on national television. Makes us look even worse than we are. But how about this? I think we're going to change that tune a little bit this week. And if the Giants lose this one, well, we're awful. But if I don't pick the Giants to at least beat the 2-7 Niners, then what kind of a fan am I? Got to give them this one. 23-20 is going to be my call. If anyone's got any quick questions for my NFL picks, give them now, because in a minute we're going to be heading into the bubble, the debut of the Top Level Sports College Basketball Weekly Show. Very excited for that. Tell you what, I'm going to check some college basketball scores from today. I saw Kentucky was in a close one early on, and we saw that Texas just got that win against Arkansas. And my goodness, if I can't even load ESPN.com. Here we are. So I know there were a few good matchups going on today. Was not able to watch all of them. Was finishing up preparing for the show. LSU, that close game against UNC Greensboro, up 6 with 50 seconds left. They'll probably pull away with that one. Oklahoma with a win. West Virginia playing Buffalo. That is a March Madness rematch. And 13th ranked West Virginia. I'm sorry, that Buffalo game was against Arizona. What am I talking about? West Virginia up 6 nearing the end of the half. Buying a little bit of time for people that were watching the first part of the show to join in. And also just checking up on some scores for me. Number 11, Auburn. Number 25, Washington. Going at it on SEC Network. 27-14 lead midway through the first half for Auburn. I'll probably tune into that one when I'm done the show. And Kentucky did get that win. It was a close one. They were only up 3. This number 2 Kentucky team that, as we will talk about in just a minute, struggled mightily against Duke. Only up 3 at the half against Southern Illinois, but does win 71-59. So good for them getting on the board. Iowa State beating Missouri in a Big 12 versus SEC matchup. Missouri used to be a Big 12 team. And nothing else particularly of note. So let's head back in to the second half of the show, the debut of the bubble. We talked about the NFL midseason. This is the second half of the special. From the midseason now to the tip-off. And once again, to give you that kind of roadmap, we're going to talk about the Champions Classic. Head into my Spotlight Team of the Week. Hint, 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 it's Duke. Check out some of the upcoming games, some of the best games on the schedule for the next week. Some season storylines. And my Final Four predictions. So let's do it. I'm excited to talk about college basketball. If you know me, this is my favorite sport. It's my favorite thing to talk about just about. And we're going to head right into it with the Champions Classic. Every year they get these 4 teams in some permutation to play each other. The Blue Bloods, historic programs, historic coaches. Bill Self, Tom Izzo, Calipari, Coach K. This year I was at the Bankers Life Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana, home of the Indiana Pacers. And what a better way to kick off the season than we did on Tuesday. 4 top 10 teams, again, historic great programs, 2 fantastic matchups. Let's get straight into my takeaways from this one. The first game was Kansas against Michigan State. And Kansas coming in the number 1 team in the country, Michigan State number 10. And this was a game, Kansas set the pace and the tone of this one early. Freshman Quentin Grimes from my College Park High School was a sharp shooter in this one, hit 6 out of 10 threes, finished with 21 points and 4 assists. A lot of those threes coming early, bang, 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 getting Kansas up on the board. But of course, Big Doke, Udoka Azubuike, the 7'1" Nigerian center, the biggest man, not necessarily tallest man, but the biggest dude in college basketball, doing some work down low as well. Tell you what, he took about 1 shot last season. They pulled up his shot chart during the game from 17-18. He took 1 shot from outside about 5 or 6 feet away from the basket. You know why? Because he shoots 77% and he gets dunks and he gets easy layups and he catches lobs. And he's got a good post game from in close. So when you're that big of a presence, why take it outside? Why make it any harder for yourself? Just eat. Just eat, big man, eat. And that's what he was doing. So shout out to Quentin and Doak. Of course, the transfer from Memphis, following that 16-17 season, in his first game with Kansas, Dedrick Lawson. Both of the Lawson brothers, Dedrick and KJ, moving over this season to Kansas. And Lawson struggled a little bit from the floor. 5 of 18, although he did shoot 10 of 12 from the line. But I said, he could be a Player of the Year candidate early on in that article I wrote last week. Or article I wrote Monday, rather. And I definitely saw that from Lawson. This was a guy that was aggressive. He was assertive. He was a beast on the glass, showed great passing ability, finished with 20 points, 14 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, doing a little bit of everything. So I really liked what I saw from him. And if he can get that shot going, that looks like an unstoppable force at backcourt for Kansas again of Quentin Grimes and Devin Dotson. Looked pretty good. Dotson with another 16 points as well. It was a slow start to the year for LeGerald Vick, but don't worry, he will be back on track before you know it. And Kansas started out strong, had a big lead in that first half, but Michigan State pulled it back. And Michigan State, they lost oh my God, is his name really going to be slipping? Miles Bridges. They lost Miles Bridges. Searching for a little bit of leadership on that team. The man for the job is point guard Cassius Winston, one of the best passers in the NCAA, and he showed it off with 11 assists. And Michigan State was down big early, and they were down 14 at half, but they kept fighting in this one. And this is, I think, resiliency that we've come to expect from a Tom Izzo coach team. Because you think about it, I feel like for me, Michigan State's always been a team that has overperformed. And by that I mean, when was the last time Michigan State really had the number one recruiting class? Or really had anyone that was supposed to be a top 5 pick in the draft? Anybody like that? There's a team, of course, they've always been talented, but never that really elite talent. When you look at Kansas and Kentucky and Duke and the other teams on your screen right now, I think there's been a bit of a gap in terms of recruiting and really, the quality of teams. But Michigan State has fared just as well, if not better than them in a lot of seasons. And Izzo's a legendary coach, and he's reached title games and championships and Final Fours, and he had a streak, for a while. If you were a Tom Izzo freshman, by the time you were a senior, it was 100% guaranteed you'd reach a Final Four. Because that's the kind of success this guy has, and that's the kind of teams he puts together. And they definitely showed up. Definitely struggled with a bit of foul trouble early on in this game. But, with Nick Ward, and he was getting, beaten down low. But had a good second half from Cassius Winston, and Kenny Goins really showed up with that double-double, 17 and 11 for Michigan State. And they made this one close. And really, maybe it's a credit to Kansas and the confidence that team played with. Because it never really felt like the game's outcome was too much in question. Even when it got down to 5 or 6 points late. It always felt like Kansas was going to prevail. But Michigan State was there. And they were hanging. And I think that's an encouraging first performance of the season. If you're Michigan State and if you're Tom Izzo. And you can really build off this. And, they're going to be one of the favorites to win the Big Ten. And they got pieces. They got Matt McQuaid. And they got others. And it was nice to hear Dickie V returning for his 40th year on the commentary in this one. And I don't know. I think a lot of people might find Vitale annoying, but I love him. Gotta love Dickie V in my opinion. So Kansas is a strong start for them. It's an encouraging start for their backcourt, but also showing off the transfer and showing off the big man. And, they lost some pieces too. Last couple of years, Kansas has had player of the year caliber point guards. And lost Frank Mason. And now they're still, they still look good. It's the number 1 team in the country. I think they proved it. Maybe not really. We'll see if Duke, it'll be interesting to see if Duke does pass them in next week's rankings. But, clearly I think one of the best teams in the country for me, a Final Four favorite for sure. But let's be honest, that's not the big game of the night. It's a big game. It's a really big game, all right. But that was not the big game of the night. The big game of the night was the second one. Kentucky taking on Duke and all the freshmen in that one. Something like 6 or 7 of the projected, or of the top 10 recruits, or the projected, I think it was 7 of the projected top 10 picks in the NBA draft were on the floor in this, well, on the night, but most of them coming in this latter matchup. And Duke absolutely smashed Kentucky. Let's get that out of the way. 118-84. Beat them 59-42 in each half. Unbelievable performance. And my spotlight team of the week will be Duke this week. So let's talk about that game in the next slide. The Duke Blue Devils, entered the year number 4. And I think a big reason of that was people were not sure how this team would react. Super, super young. Their 4 best players, all freshmen. Their whole starting 5 last year left to the NBA. And they're all currently in the NBA or the D League. But they have 4 superstar freshmen. This is the first time ever that one program gets the top 3 recruits in a single recruiting class. R.J. Barrett from Canada, Zion Williamson from South Carolina, and Cam Reddish, 1, 2, 3, as well as Trey Jones, younger brother of Tyus Jones, who was the Final Four most valuable player in 2015 for Duke's last national championship. So 4 5-star recruits for them. They actually have a fifth that reclassified into this year's class, but it looks like he might redshirt, or at least at the very least he did not play in the first game of the season, so not quite in the rotation at this point. But, there's a lot of concern, especially if you think about a lot of the Kentucky teams that start off maybe a bit slow, and they turn it on by the end of the season. Of course, we know Duke probably by the end of the season is going to be good, but there were some questions with the lack of leadership and so on, if this team was really going to start off the season as dominant. And the answer is a resounding yes. So let's talk about these freshmen one by one, what I saw from them. RJ Barrett, best player on the court, without a doubt. This guy was phenomenal. He was absolutely ready for prime time. No signs of nerves from any of these freshmen. Most impressive for me about RJ Barrett, again, his comfort, but his slashing ability and his athletic finishing at the rim. He could at will plow through the Kentucky defense, get either draw a foul and get to the line, or hit an acrobatic layup. An amazing finisher. This guy was incredible. Also showed off the ability to hit the deep ball. And I tell you what, when all 4 of these freshmen hit a 3 in the first 4 or so minutes of the game, that should have been the sign for Kentucky that this was going to be a rough game. So he has the outside shot. He, unbelievable, again, athletic finishing ability. Had a humongous performance. Set a Duke record for most points in the first game of the season for a freshman. 33 points. To go along with 4 boards and 6 assists. Made 3 triples. And the second place guy, well, it was Marvin Bagley's record with, I believe, 25 points in his debut. But the new record, of course, being set by RJ Barrett. And second place on the record book is now Zion Williamson, the second of Duke's 4 stars. Zion Williamson is the viral dunking sensation, the next LeBron. The guy taking off from the free throw line, 6'6" to 6'7", but 285 pounds, and that doesn't even sound real. And you think that'd be a fat guy, he would be slow and sluggish moving up the court, just mainly a post player, maybe a round mound or rebound type. Zion Williamson is unbelievable, and 45-inch vertical, whatever the number is. This guy, I tell you what, Zion Williamson, there's always been, the thoughts of, will he be able to translate his game when he plays against real tough competition? You watch the game? Yeah, he can. There's going to be a little concerns about him, I think, with foul trouble moving forward. He did pick up 2 early ones in the first half. He did finish with 3. He only played 23 minutes in this game. But it only took Zion 23 minutes to put his stamp on it. 28 points, 11 of 13 from the field, and 1 of 1 from 3. Again, he had a couple more deep 2s as well. And again, if Zion Williamson can start hitting jump shots, it's game over. How are you going to defend all these players? 28 points, 7 boards for him. What struck me most about Zion was the passing ability, though. Of course, the athleticism as well. But some of the passes this guy made were top 10 ESPN, top plays type of passes. So the ball control. This was a guy that, 8th, 9th grade, he was playing point guard. You got a guy 285. The only taller NBA player is Boban, who's 7'3". And you got the 6'7", 285 Zion, throwing down windmills and free throw line dunks, and maybe we'll see them later in the game. But you've seen all the videos. This guy's a stud. And he can shoot the ball, and he can rebound the ball, and he's got post moves, and he hits the 3, and it's maybe RJ Barrett might just be a little smoother, barely. But these 2 guys are going to set the NCAA on fire this season. Good Lord. How can you stop them? And if it was just these two players, Duke would be a Final Four favorite. But we keep going. Cam Reddish, again, the number 3 overall recruit in this year's class, to me, is maybe the most comfortable scorer out there. He's got a sweet stroke from 3. He's very comfortable attacking to the rim, getting to the line. He showed his ability to do that. Super calm. He could have a Klay Thompson type of role, where he's just this guy that goes about, does his business, gets you 20 a game, and he looks so smooth doing it, but he's never going to be the focus. And if Cam Reddish, if a guy that talented is never the focus, I mean, he's just going to explode sometimes this season. Because he looked amazing as well. But I wouldn't blame you, if you didn't really pick up on it as much, because it was a quiet performance. Again, he only played 24 minutes. Because he also picked up 4 fouls. And it's not like they needed any of these guys really in the second half. They were already up 20, 30 points. He looked like a great scorer to me. He had 4 steals. Talk about the defense on Cam Reddish. And then, of course, the younger brother of Tyus Jones, Trey Jones, technically only scored 6 points. By the way, R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, and Cam Reddish combined for 83. Kentucky only scored 84. 3 freshmen beat Kentucky, basically. 4 freshmen, if you want to add in Trey Jones, beat him 89-84. And Trey Jones, maybe not, the most dynamic performance. And Trey Jones is another guy that can beat you, but he's never going to be the focus. But he still racked up 7 assists. Passed the ball very well. He could be the leader on this team. He could be that glue guy keeps them all together. Those are the 4 stars. Those guys are incredible. Let's look at some other notables. Because outside of really RJ, Zion, and Cam Reddish, the best guy in the game to me, I thought was Jack White. And Jack White looked pretty great for a 43-year-old musician. And that's my token bad joke of the day. But Jack White, the Aussie, he's a guy, he's a junior on Duke. He has not really been a big guy in the rotation his first 2 years. But he has a great offseason, and he comes back. And this guy was the leading rebounder in the game. Off the bench, he plays 30 minutes, goes 9 points, 11 boards. He has 6 offensive rebounds. And Jack White is not a huge guy. He's listed at 6'7", 222. But the hustle was there, and he was, saving balls, going out of bounds, and big on the offensive glass, and he hit a few shots. And to me, he looked great. He looked fantastic. And Duke has these other players. You have Jack White, and you have Alex O'Connell. Another guy that's been hanging around. He's been a role player for the last year or two. They have guys that can hit threes. You got R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson that can get anything they want at the rim any day of the week. But then you got Cam Reddish who can hit threes, and Trey who can hit threes. And this team's going to have the spacing, and they're going to have guys open all the time. By the way, did I mention, in this game, Duke racked up 22 assists with just 4 turnovers. Yeah, just 4 turnovers. By the way, Trey Jones with his 7 assists, no turnovers at all. So they're going to have guys that can hit shots, and they're going to have guys that can play defense, and guys that can rebound, and guys that can hustle. Also, you got Marquise Bolden, who was actually the starter for Duke in this game, and he's really Duke's real center. He's a guy, 6'11", 250. You're never going to see him shoot a 3. But he's a guy that's a good player down low and close to the basket. So it'll be interesting to see if they just roll with him. I think I liked the rotation, really, of a mix of, playing Bolden and then putting in Jack White. And for the most part, it was a 6-man rotation for Duke. Although injuries, forced them to, or not injuries rather, but foul trouble, forced them to put in guys like Alex O'Connell and Javin DeLaurier, who both did good in about 11 and 12 minutes for them. So probably really 8 guys is what Duke's going to be looking at moving forward. But they're fantastic. All of them can ball. They got, the freshmen, and I'm running out of things to say about these guys, but there's just so much to talk about. I've said so much already. They're fantastic. What's the ceiling for this team? Can they go undefeated? Sure they can. Will they? Probably not. But for me, this is the best team in the country by a country mile. Well, actually, let's slow down. We'll wait for them to play a few more games. But judging by the way they played that first game, they looked unstoppable offensively. I mean, they threw up 118 points. It was the worst loss John Calipari has ever had with Kentucky. So I think this is a team that is probably going to be has to be a title favorite moving forward. Has to be. It just has to be. And, who knows what the ceiling is going to be for these guys, but the front three, and just everyone else, it's going to be fantastic. A few thoughts on Kentucky. Obviously, I think Reed Travis was their best player in this game. For me, the transfer from Stanford. I thought early on maybe Tyler Hero tried to play a little bit of hero ball, try to get things going. He got things going later in the game. Turned out a decent performance, but really, he didn't really get anything going until they were down 30. And then at that point, who cares? But overall, this is a team, Kentucky, and you don't want to put too much stock in one game, especially when you're playing Duke. This is still a team that can win a championship, still a team that can make the Final Four. Not right now, but later. So, a very disappointing performance from Kentucky again, especially on defense. But they can get better, and I wouldn't count them out quite yet. The problem with them is Kentucky in years past has had, guys, John Walls and DeMarcus Cousins and Karl Anthony Towns and last year Kevin Knox. And they've had players that can just take over a game by themselves. I'm not sure if Kentucky really has that guy this year. Maybe it's Reed Travis, but I don't really think he has that full takeover power, although he's been fantastic for his whole career, but not in that really special way. And he's not a guy that plays too much on the outside. Not a guy that can defend super well on the outside. He got blown by Zion a few times. But Duke, man, these guys are good. Next game will be on Sunday, taking on the Army. Coach K, I don't know. Is this a little known fact? I think it's probably a little known fact. Coach K started his coaching career at the Army. Was a coach then for about 5 or 6 years before he took over Duke, where he's been for 40 or so. But yeah, Coach K started at the Army. Played for the Army. And the Army are going to get destroyed by Duke if their first game has anything to say about it. So that's going to be my Spotlight Team of the Week. And the idea is, again, for every week for me to talk about a team, whether it's a team that's on fire, or, if it's a Final Four contender, or a team that just got hot, or a team that's struggling, or a team that's a mid-major that's doing well, or, a team that's got an interesting storyline attached to it, just to, really talk some more, go in depth about one team every week, new team every week. By the end of the season, if we keep doing this, you're going to know a lot about a lot of teams. And through things like the Bubble Watch, which I'll get into later in the season, and the Bracketology, which I'll get into later in the season, we're going to learn a lot. And we're going to binge college basketball this season, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Talking about binging college basketball, here are the games to watch next week. Everything from Saturday, although I did not put a game from Saturday, but all the way through next Thursday before my next show on Friday. And to be honest, not a ton of high-profile matchups between ranked teams, obviously. We'll see some of those tournaments later in the non-conference, and then we'll see big games every day practically during the conference season. But my first game, Duke against the Army, just because every Duke game is going to feel like a must-watch game. And then Kansas taking on Vermont. Vermont's always the Catamounts, the favorite in that America East division conference. So we'll see them take it on Kansas. And if Kansas is not on their A game, this is a game that could sneak up on them a little bit. I don't expect Kansas to lose, but I do expect this game to be a lot closer than you're thinking, because you're probably thinking in your head 90-50. Give me 78-66. I think Vermont will put up a good fight. Xavier in Wisconsin, that's a fun one. A couple great programs. LSU against Memphis. LSU now a ranked team to start this season, and up against Memphis with their new head coach, Penny Hardaway. Penny, can he get it done? A lot of people are really high on Memphis under Penny this season. Tennessee will play Georgia Tech on Tuesday. Wednesday, this will probably be the best matchup between ranked teams this week. One of the only, if not the only, actually, matchup between ranked teams outside of the one that's happening right now. But it's number 9 Villanova against number 19 Michigan. That was the national championship game last season. So how about that? A national championship rematch on FS1 on Wednesday at 6:30. And both these teams have lost some pieces. Notably, Jalen Brunson off for Villanova and Mo Wagner for Michigan. Those were those teams' big guys. But still great teams, and it should be a fantastic matchup. And then Gonzaga, if you're awake at 11:30 Eastern on Thursday and you're thinking about tuning into some Zags, that is always going to be an option. And I think if you're one of those people that likes to stay up late, Gonzaga is going to be your friend this season. Gonzaga, St. Mary's, all those West Coast teams, UCLA, because those are the only teams they're going to be on at 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock. Those are going to be some of the ones I'm going to be watching this week, among others. But I think these ones are definitely going to be the best games to tune into for you. So make note. I'm going to close off this first episode of The Bubble and let me know what you think about the basketball show. Because again, probably going to make this a weekly thing with just some season storylines. And of course, we don't have a ton to talk about this week, really, because only a few games. Some teams haven't even played a game yet. And most teams have only played one. So there's not a ton to talk about. But there will be more, as we get deeper into the season. My goal is to, start my bracketology probably in January, in the new year, after the non-conference finishes, and we, get some actual data to judge these teams based off of. But when January comes around, I'll be talking about my bracketology on the show. Probably start doing bracketology once a week in January, and then maybe February moving into twice a week through the rest of the season. And then also we'll be talking Bubble Watch. We'll be talking more stories and injuries and surprise teams and ranked matchups and all that. Not too much right now. So here are a few things we can talk about for season storylines projecting for the rest of the season. Duke versus the world. Can anybody slow these guys down? I don't know. Freshman phenoms, of course, Duke, but also other teams. Talked about Quentin Grimes. Talk about Bull for Oregon. Had 12 points and 12 boards in his debut for Oregon. And, many others. A lot of the Kentucky guys, Romeo Langford for Ohio State. We'll see about those impact transfers, such as Reed Travis, such as Dietrich Lawson, such as all the guys on Nevada, it feels like. New coaches, Chris Mack leaving from Xavier to Louisville. A bit of a shocker in the offseason that he did make that move. And then Penny Hardaway to Memphis. And then the NCAA investigation. Because this thing's going to keep trucking along. And so far, there's been guilty verdicts, but it really hasn't changed too much of the state of college basketball, really, and things are going as planned. A couple guys are still suspended, though, like Silvio De Sousa, the Kansas big man, who's been involved in all these scandals, and he is out indefinitely while the investigation takes place. And the FBI did this week allow the NCAA to start conducting their own investigations in some of these situations. So for now. Kansas a little thinner than they would usually be in the front court, but they should still be fine with Azubuike and Mitch Lightfoot. But we'll see if anything else comes out with the NCAA investigation. And then finally, my season predictions. My player of the year is going to be RJ Barrett. I think Zion could come into that race for sure, but RJ Barrett, to me, gets the edge. I think he probably will be the better player this season. We'll see who ends up being the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft, because I think it will be one of these guys. And then my final 4. My final 4 picks will be Duke, Kansas, and then 2 teams not from power conferences. We got Gonzaga and Nevada, and I love both of these teams. In fact, I got Gonzaga in the championship game against Duke, but who really is going to want to pick against Duke after what they saw in that first matchup? So for now, Duke will be my champion. Those are my final 4 predictions. Any questions for me? That's the first episode of The Bubble, the Top Level Sports college basketball talk show. Now we got Direct Snap and The Bubble. Starting to build our own programming network over here at Top Level Sports. Thanks for tuning into the show. I've been Connor Groel, as always, having a fun time talking NFL and college basketball with you. Although we did have that break in the middle, unfortunately. But finished strong. And again, let me know what you think about the show. Because as it stands, I'm probably going to be trying to do 2 shows a week. Do Direct Snap on Wednesdays and The Bubble on Fridays. And I think we do have to split them up if I am going to do both of these shows. Because, well, my voice isn't going to be able to handle it, talking just nonstop for an hour and a half, if that's what it's going to be. And I think it is nice, to have, when your show's going to be on. But thanks again for everybody tuning in. I've been Connor Groel, and until next Wednesday, where we will have Direct Snap Week 11, I'm signing out. See you.